let's begin.
Sounds great.
What's your full name?
Barbara Hoard.
All right. And where were you born?
I was born in Toledo, Ohio. Yeah. Don't ask me anything about Toledo, Ohio, though.
What year?
1967.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything special about that date?
No, but I look at my birthday, it's 7/27/67, so I see all the sevens, and I think it's special.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. What about your father's name?
Moses Henry Mitchell.
Okay. What was his place of birth and occupation?
Memphis, Tennessee, and he used to sell for the Yellow Pages. I know.
The Yellow Pages.
And yeah, he sold cars, but he definitely worked with AT&T and Bell South, and sold Yellow Page ads.
Those things are no longer even necessary.
No, most people probably go what is a Yellow Page and what is an ad, right? But yeah.
So what is a Yellow Page?
Yeah, well, it was its book, right? Which had everything. If you wanted to find anything, now we go to the internet, but if you really wanted to find anything, what you would have done is you would have went to the Yellow Pages, and it would have told you, you had every company that was there that was in the Yellow Pages.
Okay, it was like the internet in a book.
Yes, and it was yellow, so that's why they call it the Yellow Pages.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about your mother's name?
Yeah, so this is an interesting thing. I would say my stepmom's name, which is Deborah Mitchell. My birth mom, which was Trouty Mitchell, she left when I was 18 months old when she left. So saw her again maybe 3 times in my life. Yeah.
All right, so when was place of birth and occupation?
Well, she was born in Germany. And I don't really know what she did. And then with my stepmom, she worked for Bell South. That's how her and my dad how they met.
Okay. How about any siblings?
A lot.
Good story.
I know, right? So I have my sister Margaret, who lives in Dallas. And then I have my brother Mark, Jerome, and Derek, who live here in South Florida.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, where did you grow up?
I grew up basically Memphis, Tennessee, a little bit in Chicago, and then I've been in South Florida since 13.
Okay. Can you describe the house you lived in?
The house I lived in, it's so funny. Houses, so multiple houses, but the last house, which is still the house that my stepmom lives in, 2-story house in the middle of the street, and you had streets that kind of came together. You had from this side to this side to the middle, and so everyone we all was in front of the house. That's how we played. That's how we really enjoyed life. And I would say also Memphis. There was my grandparents and my aunt's house for every summer, so that was home to me as well, which was really a special time every summer to be there with my cousins and growing up there.
Did you have your own room?
In this house, I did have my own room. I did. Yeah, nothing extraordinarily special. And I think that's why when I had my own place, I made it really special. And I made it for me and very colorful and girly because I think when I was growing up, it was just kind of basic. And I'm definitely not basic, so.
so basic, like elaborate if you can.
It just was brown, and it just was regular furniture, and there was I don't think there was a piece of me, and there was no really expression of who I was, and maybe because I was still figuring that out. But it was just a simple room, nothing extraordinary.
So who were you?
Great question. I was the good kid. My brothers decided to raise hell from one side of South Florida to the next. So I was the kid who was really good. I made sure to do everything I was told. I didn't want to cause any trouble. So I was the good one. Yeah.
Do you remember at any point, what was the origin of that?
Oh, I think I can tell you for sure. My dad he loved women, right? So the best way to say it. So it was, he was married multiple times, and in Tennessee, I remember at 5 having this this room, this beautiful room, and I shared it with my brother. And it was a really big room, and we had these moments. And when he got divorced, and then, I moved to Chicago with the aunt, then all of a sudden I moved to Florida to come here to meet my stepmom. So I think I was always playing life really safe. I was always playing it that I didn't want to cause any trouble because my mom left when I was super young. So what would happen? I didn't want anyone else to leave. So I figured if I was a good girl, if I did everything, then guess what? Everyone would be there for me, and that it would be, the way it is. And so I had cousins and, like I said, my brothers and my sister who just decided to do whatever they wanted to do. I waited until 18 to do that. So.
So you said something about that you and your brother used to have these moments. Can you describe one of those moments?
I think my moments of growing up, it was different ones because my brother and sister who I grew up with, they left when I was young. My brother is 2 years older than me. My sister is 8 years older than me. And when they left, I remember it was joy. We used to have fun. I remember playing with my kitchen set. There was joy and fun. And then when I left to go to Chicago and then to come back down to Florida, I met a whole new family. So I had now brothers who were much younger than me, and I almost became like the caretaker of them. So the moments were more on the lines of making sure they were okay. I think my best moments were with my cousins every summer and experiencing life. Every Saturday morning having cereal and watching wrestling. I know, it was the best time. We used to watch wrestling like every Saturday morning. Everybody would climb into my aunt's bed and we would just watch, it was like you wouldn't miss it. It was these moments of watermelon on the back porch and at night chasing the fireflies. And, nowadays, I don't think kids get that. Like we would stay outside and play until it was way past dark. Those moments create those memories, and they were special.
Who was your favorite wrestler?
Oh gosh, Billy Dundee, Andre the Giant, and these are like old school wrestlers because this wrestling now, so it's not the same. And in Memphis, they used to wrestle down at the Coliseum, so we would watch it because my gosh, they were literally right down the street. It's pretty cool.
What did you like about Andre the Giant?
As big as he was, he's as sweet as he was. And I think that the whole thing about wrestling, the whole thing was Saturday mornings used to be the cartoons and then the wrestling. And I think it was more of a moment that all the cousins were together. And even to this day, when I went back to Memphis a few months ago, we still talk about it. We still talk about those times and how Saturday mornings are nothing like they used to be. That's when cartoons were real. That's when your cousins were around and you just know them. And so reconnecting with them now is incredible to be able to catch up with them on Facebook, what's going on, meet the new family members. That's pretty special.
What are the names of some of your favorite cousins since you refer to them as so special in your life?
Yeah, so I think my favorite, ultimate, like almost sister cousin is Paula. And Paula went through probably the toughest life that you could go through. And to this day, no matter what, when I see her, there's just an instant connection. And the love I have for her, it's amazing. And then there's, we've got Sharon, the most beautiful singing voice you could ever have, Kenny, who I always wondered how he's going to grow up, and turned out, he is now. He's this family man and he's great. So when I see him, it's really, we joke and we tease each other every time, but I know that if I needed him, he would be there in a heartbeat.
What's your fondest memory of your favorite cousin? Is it Jenny?
Oh, Paula.
Paula, sorry.
We have, I would say every summer we hung out, and I mean, we hung out. So I think what's really cool is the favorite thing that I remember, and this is not even a moment, it's not a moment I remember, it's a picture. There's a picture where we had our grandmother's wigs on, and we had these really early 70s striped shirts with the wigs, and we were just it's the dog. He's like, yeah, I remember too. But we had this moment of our hands on our hips with the wigs, and everyone treated Paula like she was like the black sheep, and no matter what, I was told stay away from her. She's not good for you, whatever. And it didn't matter because every moment with Paula was just joy, and we just simply loved each other. So every time I see that picture, it just makes me laugh because that to me is every memory with her.
How were either family or people, how would they treat Paula as a black sheep? Can you remember one instance that?
Yeah, well, so Paula's first child came at, I think, 13, and her second came at 15. So imagine by 15, you're a mother of two. So what they did is they really did say, like, you know what, look at what you're doing, and think about it. Back then, you're having these children really young in life. And so I guess they thought, stay away from her because just in case, what if you decide to do that? To me, that was the best example of not to do that because she couldn't hang out, she couldn't do anything. But I believe, and I look at how rough of a life she's had, sometimes we do make mistakes in life and things happen in life. How we treat others, how we respect others, and especially in our own family, it really did, I believe, scarred her. So for me, no matter what, and I've been in Tennessee to go visit her, and where she would just take off and be gone. And it didn't matter because no matter what, she is still someone who I think is so incredibly special. And I see the greatness in her. And no matter what has gone on in her life, and no matter what she's done, I still see her greatness.
And do you remember who repeatedly said, stay away from her?
Oh, well, yeah, my dad, my stepmom, I would say my grandfather was really rough on her. And my grandfather was a really loving man. But when it came to Paula, he was just, and they lived next door to each other too. So I know he saw her on a regular basis where I would see her, 6 weeks in the summer. But he was really tough on her. And I think that really kind of struck, and it wasn't just him. I would say the majority of the family just kind of looked at her as that. They really did treat her like because she had these babies. And who knows why, but I think that's the thing about it. And what it created something in her for her not to believe in herself. But the last time I went up there, which was 2 months ago, I saw her growth, and she's really working to be her best self. So, and I'm gonna always look at her that way.
Yeah. How your relationship with her influenced you, and how you grew up?
You know what? I'm a fighter, and I fight for the underdog. And so for me, it didn't matter what someone else was telling me. And maybe this was my first sense of having my voice. Because maybe I didn't have my voice for myself, but I definitely had it for her. So I think with her, it was, she always loved me, and she always was like seeing the greatness in me. And so I was her defender, her champion. And I just thought about that because it really did kind of set me up for how now I take care of myself and how now I honor others, because I never want someone to have to go through that and what she went through.
Yeah. Do you remember that point that, man, I don't have a voice, but thanks to Paula, you're like, oh, you know what, I do have a voice? It's
funny, I didn't realize it until now when you're talking to me about Paula, that finding my voice, I didn't even think about it. Like I've worked so long and hard on finding my voice because I didn't have one. I remember when I was going to Chicago, and my aunt, I went to hug my uncle, and my aunt's like, you know what, we don't do those kind of things, and you need to be a certain way. And it was very strange to me because I'm a super affectionate person. So I was always told, you shouldn't do this, what you shouldn't do. And for me, that maybe with my mom leaving, whatever it was always, I love giving love. I love loving others. And so I think it took me a really long time to find my voice. Honestly, I don't think I found my voice till much, much later in life, and probably close to almost 40 before I really discovered that. And still, I'm very clear now on my voice, but it took me years to do that and years to see where I kind of gave it up.
Yeah. What did you want to say? They say, right, back then you didn't have a voice. What did you want to say back then?
I think the most important thing I wanted to say is to see me. Yeah, I wanted my mom to know that no matter what, that I loved her, that it didn't matter, that I want to say thank you. I have a picture of my mom holding me when I was 6 months old. And I don't have many pictures. I think that's the only picture I have with my mom. And my aunt said, she did love you. And so when I look at that picture, forgiving her really created the space for me to step into it. So I think it's see me and know, like, I'm a little bit of the crazy relative in the family. You know, I love being in service. I love doing things. I'm always outgoing. I love to travel. And so a lot of times it's like, you know, no, get a steady job, you know, get married, this is what you need to do. And for me, I rather, you know, go to Greece by myself or find and meet people and grow and learn. And I think that that's the thing about it. If I had a voice and if I was to tell like that little girl inside of me is that, like, speak your truth, honor who you are, and know that your greatness can shift this world. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so now describe your childhood with one word and why that word.
Searching. And it's so funny because I was trying to figure out what is this one word, because for me,
discovery or searching?
No, it's not even a discovery, it's a searching. And I think the reason why searching is because I was always searching for me. I always put on the show to make sure that my family was happy, my parents and everything else. So I think there were some really great moments, and there was so much moments of joy. There's so many fun moments, but then there were so many moments also of sadness. And when you meet your mom and you meet her for one day and then she goes away, that's huge. It's those things. So it was always searching for what's within me or what's not within me. What happened? Why? When I see parents or mothers and daughters together, I'm always like, oh, that has to be incredible, because I never had that. So I think it was searching for me. And now maybe it is discovery now, because as I discover who I am and discover the gifts that are within me. But, you know, I'm turning 52 next month. And I think for the first time, I feel like in the last few years, like I feel alive. I feel like I've finally figured out who I am. So maybe the search has come to the point of really being in discovery. But the searching was, what was I supposed to be? What was I supposed to be doing? And I look at some people, how their lives are, and whatever it is, however my path was set, it was perfect for me. But it took all of this time to realize that, because when I speak to women or when I encourage or when I speak to kids, you know, I get them. I know that feeling of not feeling wanted. And I know that feeling of feeling that you should have done more. And now I realize that everything that has happened has put me in a place that when I go and speak to someone, I can relate to them in such a way that they open up and they share, and maybe something that they've never shared before.
Yeah. Can you describe at least one moment in which you felt I'm not wanted?
Oh gosh. That's so funny to say one moment. Yeah, there's so, it's like how much time do we have?
It's your story.
I think one of the biggest things about when you're saying like not wanted, I always felt that from when I was in Chicago when I moved, because my parents, my stepmom, the only one I knew, they were getting divorced, and I decided I'm gonna, you know, I got an opportunity to move to Chicago. Joy and happiness, and I was a really great student, the whole thing. And then I got a call that says, you're coming to Florida. I got married. There is nothing that you will ever, like for me, that experience of you met this woman, you married her, and then you're like, hey, come on down. There's a point of feeling not accepted, not part of something, not there. And even more so, even with my mom leaving, because I never knew my mom in the first place. But I think that, and then to come down and not feel like a part of the family, not feel wanted, not feel like that I was accepted in there. And I always said I felt like I was left on the doorstep, in a basket, and they just kind of took me in. So when you have that, there's this unwanting, this need. And I think that was probably the biggest thing, is that when I came down here, my voice was not heard. And here I am now in this new family that I was like, where did they come from? And I have no idea. I get off the plane, it's like, hey, here's your new stepmom. And so I think that's a big part of it, even more so than my mom just taking off and leaving. Yeah.
If you remember any other moments, you can share them. That you can describe in detail.
I think in high school, I joined to be a drum major, the flags, right? And I practiced, and my name was on the list. I was like, I made it, I was so excited about that. And I had to step down because they wouldn't. This dog is so funny. I love it because the dog is saying, like, I get you. I see this. But I think when they would not be a part of this, and it was almost like, rehearsals. And when you have children, you take them to events. You come and you watch them. And they never did that. So I stepped down from that when I was in my play. I love drama. So I was in a play. And they didn't come and see the play. When you grow up having these little moments, when, and it's true, when I grow up and having these moments lead to bigger moments. And they're leading to this desperation, like I was desperate to find someone to love me, to accept me, to want me. And that took a while for me to kind of say, I want me. Like, I'm okay with me. And I have people who say, you're amazing and you're wonderful and you're great. But I would say this, until you realize your greatness, until you realize who you are, no one can tell you any of that. That's a huge part of my life. And the time it took me to get to that part of really accepting me. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What sort of things did your family celebrate?
My favorite is Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, I think, is the most incredible holiday, and it's not like how it used to be, but my dad was the person that if you had no place to go, he would meet a stranger and he would be like, oh, you have no place to go for Thanksgiving? Come on over. So we would have these strangers come over for Thanksgiving, and it was very informal. So the food was out, and the best food you could possibly think of. And it would be, come on in, eat, drink, lots of loud noise, the guys watching football, and we would have our newspapers out because we would be going to Black Friday shopping. So it was all those moments, and it was all the family together, and you're talking about, 25, 30 people. Yeah. And nothing formal, just so much fun, so much joy. And Christmas Eve was magical. In our pajamas and food and drinks. And I literally remember I used to watch this soap opera, As the World Turned, and they used to have the Hughes family, and they had the most amazing holidays. And I always loved our holidays because that's what it kind of reminded me of that. And those were so just really special moments. And that's why to this day, Thanksgiving and Christmas are my favorite holidays.
So you have one story of either one of those two holidays that you're like, oh man, I remember XYZ happened.
It's so weird because I don't think there's one story. I think it's this compilation of stories. I think it's this grouping of, you knew that these holidays were special. You knew that the moments, like getting up early and making sure the house was clean because everybody was coming over. And then when people came over and there was so much love, there was so much joy. And no matter what else was going on throughout the year, those holidays were magical. And so I think if you were to say, was there one specific thing? I don't think so. I think that there was, this thing for sure was going to be a special moment. And now as we grow older and our kids are coming and grandkids are coming, you start to see how those memories are starting to come again, you know? Yeah.
So share more about your mom that lived in Germany that you didn't get to see until you were age.
Yeah, I was 18. She left when I was 18 months old. She came back when I was 18 years old and didn't come back. I think we went out to California, and that was the first time that I remember meeting her. I've heard a lot about Germans being kind of just really stoic and just, you know, very hard and everything. And yeah, there's no warm and fuzzy with her. There's nothing warm and fuzzy. It was just very much of a meeting someone. And I probably, if I passed her on the streets, it would have been just like meeting a stranger. And I met her again, like I saw her again when I was, I think, 23, and then the last time when I was 29. There was something was missing for her. And I can't even imagine think about, first of all, you're growing up in Germany during the time with Hitler, with the Nazis, with everything that's going on. You meet this African-American, you know, soldier that's coming over. I was born in 1967. My sister was born in 58. So if you think about that, she came over to America, and here she is, Caucasian. That's why I have love for her, because I don't even know what she would have gone through to be in that space. And I just know that my dad was in the service. He was in the Army for 21 years. And so he was gone a lot. And here she is with these, you know, 3 biracial children. And I think she was just missing something. Something was missing for her in life. So she was never, there would be times when all of a sudden she would send a card and be like, you know, Merry Christmas. And then 3 years would go by before she would send another card. And when the time came and I found out she had passed, it was 1.5 years later. And her biggest fear was that we were going to take her money because she had remarried and her husband was very wealthy. I think the only thing I wanted would have been to hold her hand during those last days, to let her know that she was loved and she was okay and that I forgave her, you know.
You found another toy. All right, so we got more. Is your dad still with us?
My dad passed on, let's see, this is 20, so he passed on the day after Christmas, 2017. And it was wild too, because he was 6 weeks before that, they had stage 4 lung cancer. They had given him 6 months to a year to live, 84 years old. And I remember coming into the house one day and he was on the phone, and I realized it was on the phone with his pastor. And he's like, I lived my life. And if it was time for me to go, 21 years in the Army, he was a strong, powerful man. So I think he went the way he went, because the day before, on Christmas Day in the hospital, there must have been 40 of us. I'm surprised they didn't kick us out. He was eating, it was joy, it was fun. And the next morning by 9:30, he was gone. I spoke at his funeral, and I said the best way to honor his life is by living my own. And you know, friends said, you were so strong, I can't believe you spoke, like you were able to, your composure to do that. And I said, because he lived his life. If there's anything I would say, is to live your life, like go for it. And that's the one thing I know. And then there's still parts that he didn't live. And so I think that's why I said by honoring his life. And that's why I travel also. Because I think one of the last things he would want to do is to take a cruise in Germany. Like he always wanted to on those long ships and down the riverways, and he never got a chance to do that. You know, so I travel and I do things that I live. You know, and I enjoy every moment of my life.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. All right, so what were your family's attitude towards alcohol or smoking?
My dad was a smoker for a long time, so I think that we didn't like it. But I think back then, you know, you used to smoke in offices, you know, on airplanes. I remember flying where there was like smoke-filled airplanes, right? Which is kind of crazy that you're 30-something thousand feet in the air and you're, you know, smoking. So I think that it was something that it was just normal. And then he stopped, and he hadn't smoked for like 20 years. And as far as alcohol goes, I don't think we were big drinkers. It was like, you know, there was a party going on or something, but I never wondered about drinking. I never, you know, it wasn't anything that was like, oh, don't drink, do drink. It was just, it wasn't anything that was like, oh, you know. So I think that for me, at least, I've never been a big drinker, you know. Have a little drink at a dinner or something and I'm good. Or I don't have to and I'm good.
Yeah, right, awesome. And how about, what was discipline like at home?
Since I was the really good kid, my discipline was fine. Discipline with my brothers, whole nother story.
That's me too, bro.
Yes, yeah. Totally different story, you know. And so, yeah, but the discipline, I think, with my stepmom, it was different because of being a girl. She grew up where it was, you didn't do anything. You know, you cleaned, you did all of that. That was kind of weird for me because like to this day, when I see my nieces, I'm just like live, like you're 14, like enjoy life. So when I say I was a good kid, I was a good kid. I did not do anything that was going to get me in trouble. One day I skipped school and we were on the bus going to the beach and a guy had a seizure on the bus and the police came up. I had a heart attack. I'm like, we're going to go to jail. I'm going to get in so much trouble. So yeah, so for discipline for me, but as far as there's a lot of anger in the house. My dad and my stepmom, the fighting was intense. And to this day, like, I don't like fighting. I just remember growing up with that. So that's just one of those things.
Can you describe one of those discipline moments for your brothers?
Oh.
What was it like?
It was pretty rough because I think like my brothers, when they got angry, like when my brother got really, really angry, he threw a knife at my dad and he went into the wall. Yeah. And so my dad went after him. And so I think that the disciplines for them, you know, there was like, you know, we're Southern, there was whoopings, right? You know, or my grandfather got the switch off the tree and you had to go get a switch and make sure if you got a switch that was real thin, they would make you get two switches and twist them around each other. That hurts. It's like, so it was those kind of things. It was that. And then when they got older, it just seems like there was just this anger and this, you know, you're not my dad, you know, I don't have to listen to you. So there was a lot of anger and a lot of yelling and a lot of screaming. And I just remember growing up with that. That was that intensity, you know.
And how does that, you know, kind of manifest itself now to you? How does that affect you today? You mentioned that you don't like fight.
Oh, I don't. If I'd rather have a conversation, I'll walk away, but I'm not the one to scream. I'm not the one. I will not say something that cuts to the core. I stay away from it. It's just not something, because when you see so much of it. I remember at 5 with my first stepmom, I had a long closet, and I remember hiding in the corner of that closet when my stepmom and my dad were fighting because it was so intense. And my brother was there, and he would just, you know, he was like, it's going to be okay. But from that point, and then, of course, he remarries in that intensity. And then he remarries in that intensity. So it's just, you know, you keep on marrying the same, and then all of a sudden it keeps on happening. So for me, I'm just not that way. If I'm upset about something, you'll know it, and I get really quiet and I walk away. Yeah.
So I know, interesting is when you were in that closet, what were you telling yourself? Was it you were 5?
I was 5. All I did was I was holding my knees, and I just was so afraid because it was It was so loud. They were fighting and it was really intense. And I don't remember telling myself anything. I just was just so scared, you know? And in the closet, like I said, it was the furthest corner I could get. It's almost a hideaway. That's what I remember as hiding.
Yeah. And what sort of things were your parents strict about? How and why?
I think the biggest thing my stepmom was and my dad just went along with it because to keep the peace, was the fact that I was the girl. You're not going to go out, you know, if you're going to, you can't sleep over anyone's house. You know, there was the sleepover. I think it's a black family thing. You don't sleep over someone's house. And I'm always like, why, you know? And so it's weird. So it was that. And there was never, I always felt like I could never do anything ever. And I remember I was 17 going to a party and the time was changing. It was changing back. So I was like, yes, I got an extra hour. I got in so much trouble because it was like, it wasn't an extra hour. It was like the time changed. You should have been home on the time that it was. And I just never understood that because I was the good kid. If I told you I was going to do something, I did it. I did the stuff I was supposed to do. So to me, I always felt as a girl in that house, I had no freedom. And growing up with brothers who were able to just kind of go and do, it was because my stepmom was raised that way. So I felt more like the maid than a child in the house.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's so what were they strict about? How and why? So you mentioned letting you out or I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything. I didn't get to go and like you have friends who are growing up and there are sleepovers and parties and that just wasn't. And when I came down to Florida and I met my new family, you know, my brothers were younger, so I became the babysitter. I became I cleaned more dishes than I can care to remember. And I get you have chores in the house, but even to this day, like I see my stepmom with my nieces and nephews, and my nephew is like freedom, and my nieces she's like, you need to clean this, you need to do this. So it's still that mentality that runs through. And that I just think is something that you like teach him how to clean and cook and do, because I look at my brothers to this day and when we're all together, like their wives are like, so what can I get you and everything and what do you want? And I'm just like, when are you going to ask the other way around? You know? So I noticed that that's how she raised them. And a man in my life, of course, I would love to make you a plate of food, but I also want that reciprocated to me as well. So I think that that's something that was a kind of a time in my life that's where I really felt invisible. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Where did you go to school?
I didn't. I was going to go away to school. I had got accepted into Clark in Atlanta, and I was so excited. And it was like, no, you can't go. Now,
Can you explain Clark?
It was a college. Clark College it was a black college, and I was so excited to go. I got accepted. I was like, yes, I'm going to go away to school. And it was no. And I don't know why I just didn't figure out, well, I can go anyway. But, you know, I didn't. So I went to Broward College, you know, community college. And because I didn't want to be there, I know my first 2 semesters, I didn't do well. So they told me, well, fine, you didn't do well, so now you can take care of it yourself. And it was one of those things I was like, oh, well, so I started working. So I went back to school. I never finished. And that story of never finishing school sat on my heart for years. When it came to jobs, I had an amazing job running a department, 23 people, making 6 figures, great bonuses. And I still didn't feel worthy because I didn't have that degree. I didn't have that piece of paper. I'm super smart and I'm quick and I do things, but every now and then that little voice of not having that degree, it pops up. Now I know, like, I'm still capable of doing that, but that was something that I felt, you know, I missed out on. And I remember one of my cousins, she had graduated high school, and my dad said to me, he goes, aren't you glad you didn't go to that school? Because you could probably barely spell the name of it. And to that day, it cut me like so deep. And this was I would say 10 years ago. And I just thought about it because that whole mentality of that whole kind of thing about school, it was never like taught to me that this is something important to do, you know. And I know that my path was the way my path is, and I wouldn't have the things I have and my son and all that. But still, I just felt like, what would happen if I would have been like, if one would have been encouraged to go to school and would have been like, this is something that's important, you know. What's great is if you would have asked me that question even a year ago, I would have been really embarrassed to say this. And now I'm like, I'm okay. I'm okay because I know my brilliance is not just because of a piece of paper, because I know a lot of people who have degrees and yeah.
And who said don't go? Who was it?
I think it was both my dad and my stepmom. Yeah. It wasn't, you know, I just don't, it's so funny when I got accepted and everything, I don't even remember why I didn't go, but it was the thing of, no, you're not going away. And then I know when my one brother, you know, when he graduated, he went away to school, and I was just like, he's going away to school. And so that was the one thing. I think if I could do anything, even if it's just a semester to go away to school, not so much, I don't even care about getting the degree, but I want that whole experience, living in a dorm, being on campus. I really do. And I would be that, you know, those movies where like the person goes back to school, that would be me, because I think it would be really cool just to have that experience of all that. Yeah.
Awesome. High school.
So high school? Mm-hmm. What about it?
Where did you go?
Oh, Ely. I was bused from, I used to live in North Lauderdale. So I was bused, 35 minutes to go to Ely and Pompano, which was very interesting because I was not black enough for the kids at Ely, and then in my neighborhood, not white enough for the kids there. So that identity of who am I, which is an interesting kind of thing, because being biracial, it's, you know, it was, I remember I was at Ely and a girl behind me, because I used to have long hair. So she would pull on my hair. And finally I turned around and I said, you pull on it one more time, I am going to wipe the classroom of you. Like, that's it. And then we became really great friends. But yeah, we really did. I remember Crystal. Yes. But it was very interesting. I loved Ely. To this day, my niece is attending school there right now. But it was definitely one of those things of discovering, you know, another thing of who am I, you know, because it is everyone, they were like, oh, you speak so proper and you're not this, you're not that. And now I'm like, hey, I'm me, you know?
So still in school, high school, do you remember any favorite teachers?
Oh,
and why?
Miss Smiley, drama teacher. She was tough and hard, but to be creative. And that's what she allowed, that space to be creative, to be able to speak and share. And I think that was my first moment of having a voice. Now that's so cool, to be able to get up on stage and to take on these, you know, personas, to take on these different acting roles and to share. And I think that's the first time I realized, you know, I'm a little kind of quirky, crazy, and that's good. I like it. Yeah.
Any teachers you did not like?
No, I was the teacher's pet. So, you know, when you do the superlatives, they named me teacher's pet. I love my teachers. I really did. I was just the one, I didn't give them trouble. So it was just one of those things. Yeah. So I don't think there was any teacher that was like, oh, no, I didn't like them.
Okay. Do you remember any games you played in school?
I was very much into like student council. I was my senior class president. I was that you know, kind of, if there was something going on, I was involved in it. And to this day, I love that. You know, I'm that one who raises my hand for things and jump in there. So that's what I did. I wasn't the sports girl or anything like that. And even PE, I just remember, you know, if we did, it was inside and, you know, some volleyball and stuff like that. But yeah, I was more of that kind of, drama girl and being involved in all kinds of activities and everything.
Okay, all right, awesome. Here we go. What was your first paying job?
Oh, my first paying job, I worked at McDonald's when I was 16, and I used to do the birthday parties. So I thought that was so much fun, and it gave me my sense of working with kids, which I love doing. So yeah, that was cool. It was right behind my house, and it was my first paying job.
Okay, now, all right. Since then, what was your favorite job?
There's a couple. The job I'm doing right now is executive director of a nonprofit, Prom to Remember. It's really magical because, we create prompts for kids who are battling cancer. I love being in service and I love giving back. So to be able to kind of do that, a lot of times people want to do things. They want to, oh my gosh, your job is so cool. How do you do that? I love that job, but I think probably any of the jobs I worked in creatively, where I did photo shoots. I worked for Sports Authority and I used to do photo shoots, went out to Mount Hood out in Oregon. And in August, it's 92 degrees and you're in snow pants, but you're doing a photo shoot for the December book. So that was really cool, is kind of creating that. I love being creative. I love being in a space where I can pull things together and I can make things happen. So I've been really fortunate to be able to be in jobs that really use those skills that I have.
So you don't have a favorite?
No, it's so weird because I think there's so many of them that are creatively, so I don't have one that I love more than anything else.
Right, that's fair. Which one's your least favorite job?
Oh gosh, I worked for this horrid little man. I was a project manager, and they did pools and redoing pools, and I was really great with customers, but he was the most miserable man ever. I only worked for them for maybe 3 months, and I was like, there's no way. And I literally walked out of that job. I was like, there's no way you're going to treat me this way.
After how long?
3 months. And it took me 3 months to do that because I was like, I shouldn't, I'm getting paid and all that. And then I just was like, forget it. I'm out of here.
Yeah. So you knew it right.
Oh, it was, I was asking him a question and he's like, why don't you just effing stop asking me these questions? And I just went, that's it. I'm done. And I got my stuff. And he's like, well, I knew you were stealing from me anyway. And I was like, oh, you poor little man, And I was like, wish you all the best. Goodbye.
Yeah. Oh my God. Amazing. Okay. Oh, you talked about this already. What were your relations like with your coworkers and with your boss? You shared that already. So, what did you do in your spare time?
So much. I'm really, like I said, I'm about being of service and giving back. So a lot of times in my spare time right now, I am working on a project for women and girls because I really want them to see their value. I think it's super important I know what it took for me. It took me all of these years for me to see my value. So that's incredibly important to me. And I love to travel. I love seeing the world and meeting people. And I love hanging out with my friends, and I love Disney. I don't care. I've gone to Greece and I've gone to Ireland and most amazing places. And if you ask me, Disney World is still one of my favorite places on the planet.
So, also, as a kid, teenager, what did you do in your spare time? Do you remember?
I didn't do much of anything. I was outside, and I went every summer, but there wasn't a lot. I was taking care of my brothers.
Did you stick to groups of friends?
I did. I do have I have some really fantastic groups. So when I was growing up in high school, I had groups, right, of friends, and that we used to hang out and everything. There were people in my neighborhood because there was the high school group, which was, school was 30 minutes away. And then there was the neighborhood kids. And it's really funny. I waited until I was almost 30 to have a best friend, like a real best friend. And now I have 4 best friends. So I always said that these people came in my life at the perfect time. Yeah.
How did you meet your partner? Is there a partner?
Well, no. So I'm single.
Okay.
I've chosen to be single because I want to bring my best self forward for, because my partners were always, I figured if I loved them enough, I would make everything okay. And so I noticed that I see the pattern. So I knew that I had to work on me before I could even go back into anything. And I do want to be married again. Like I already have my wedding picked out. I know what I'm wearing, the whole thing. But more importantly, I know how I'm going to show up as a woman and as a partner.
You've been married before?
Yes, twice.
Okay. How did you meet your first husband?
In front of my house. Yeah, he was a guy in the neighborhood. And to this day, I'm like, what the hell were you thinking?
Okay. How old were you?
I think when I met him, I was, because I had moved back home, so I might have been 22. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, it was not, I think we didn't even stay married. It wasn't even a year. And I know when I was getting ready to leave, he's like, if you leave me, I'm going to do something. And I finally just went, okay, but I can't, that showed me that was more on finding anyone to love me. And yeah.
Did you remember, where did you get married?
My first marriage, I got married in the house, in my parents' house. Yeah. I remember because I was working at a bank at the time and my boss was there and she's like, you should wear makeup more often. You're really beautiful. And I never did, so I remembered that. But I also remember him coming to the wedding like sloshed, and they should have told me like, what are you doing? So, yeah.
Now, who paid the bills? First marriage.
I did. Yeah. And we were good. I mean, we had an apartment together, so he brought money home. I worked, so bills were paid.
Yeah. And who decided where the money was spent?
I think I did. I was the strong person in that relationship for sure. Yeah.
And how can you describe that relationship, that one?
It's a snore. No. Yeah, I think that relationship was it was like to get away. And it was like, oh, somebody cares. Somebody cares. Yeah.
Now, second marriage.
Yeah.
Where did you meet him?
I met him, I was working at Publix and he was a distributor for one of the brands and I met him there. Thought he was a really super great guy. We hit it off. Will never regret that marriage because I have my son. But I also know that he married me because he thought I was a good provider. Yeah.
Okay, so then that goes into the question of who paid the bills, right?
Yeah, well, we contributed and everything, but I think that when I started working, I was like promoted quickly. And so I started making a really big amount of money. And it turned out to be where we took care of things. So yeah, it wasn't like money is a weird thing to me because I never learned about money. What I learned about money is that it comes in fast and goes out faster, And so I'm finally starting to understand money like after all these years.
How do you feel about her? About him?
About him? My son attended gratitude training, and during his part 2, his dad came there. And during that time, I just looked at him and I said, for whatever I did in the marriage to create it and to have it go away, I am so sorry. And I hugged him and I let it go. So for me, on his birthday, I say happy birthday. On Father's Day, I always say happy Father's Day. And if there's anything he ever needed, I would still be there. And I don't ever want to be married to him again, but I also respect him as the father of my son. And that's the greatest gift I've ever received. So how I look at him is that, sometimes we don't know how to treat others because we only learn we know what we know. And then I also take responsibility and accountability to how I was and how I showed up in the marriage. And by asking him to forgive me, it really allowed me to move past that.
how did you show up? Do you remember? Can you share?
You know what it felt like to me? He worked nights, I worked days. So it felt like a roommate. He, you know, that's what it was. I think toward the end, it very much, and even at the end of the marriage when I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And he's like, well, you could just stay, you know, and we'll just live here together and it'll be fine. But it was more about keeping the house and keeping the money thing. And so, and I probably I might have thought about it differently, like the new co-parenting thing. But I just was like, I wasn't loving myself enough to even be able to see that. So I think how I showed up in the marriage was I didn't take it like I wanted to be married, you know, but I don't think I treated him as this partner. And so I think that when I look at it, there was something that was missing. And I can't even imagine if all of a sudden your wife in 1 year goes from making, you know, about the same amount to all of a sudden making, you know, $40,000 more than you, like in a year. And so not to, you know, to not respect that and to not honor him. And I think that that's what it is. No matter what was going on, I chose to marry him. But I think that if I really look at it, I treated him more like a roommate than a husband and then the man that I'm supposed to honor in a marriage.
Did you both have the same ideas about having children?
Yes. But I think he loved children until they got to a certain age. So, but we knew, you know, that yes, we were gonna, you know, and I only had one. I had, you know, my son and I thought about another child, but that just turned out to be, you know, my one, and now he's almost 23. Wow. I know. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. How about your son?
Yeah.
How can you describe the motherhood experience in the relationship with your son?
Incredible. He is, the thing about it is that when I had him and him growing up, super smart, brilliant, like ridiculously brilliant. And up until 7, he was just this amazing kid. And I remember when I was going through the divorce, when I said it, I remember his light turning off, like within him. And you know, I had to really work with him to ask for forgiveness on that because of the life that he chose to live and all that. And he told me like a couple months ago, he goes, Mom, he goes, you know what, I get it and what I went through. He says, but it's okay because I never would have where I'm at right now, the girl who's in my life right now, all of that. So it's really interesting when being a parent, I needed to parent myself. So I was parenting myself and him at the same time. And that doesn't work out, you know? And so it took me a long time to forgive myself for what I created for him. Because when I say this kid was in, 2nd grade, and he was helping the science teacher teach the 5th graders, because that's how smart he was. And then he just decided that, you know, like I think by 5th grade, he just kind of gave up and just was like whatever. And now, I mean, I look at him and what he's creating, what he's doing, and talking about marriage and one day being a father, I think I did something right. Yeah.
Yes. So going back to a question.
Yeah.
When you said forgive yourself for what you created for your son, what was that you thought you created for him?
You know what? Like I said, I remember the day he gave up on himself. This kid was straight A's in school, loved school. When he was in kindergarten, he said, I'm going to get a scholarship. You know, he was going to college, right? And then he started not liking himself and just really going down a road of not taking care of himself. Just didn't care. He just didn't care. I think, you know what, not going to school or skipping school, just hanging out with like the kids who just, it's funny too, his friends he hung out with they still did well in school, but Daryl just decided, yeah, I don't care. I don't care about it. Like he barely graduated high school. And this was a kid who's brilliant and who, you know, really helped other kids, who just said that he just gave up. He didn't care. And so for me, what I felt like I created a space where I was thinking about myself more than I thought about him. And like I said, I was trying to raise myself, meanwhile trying to raise him, you know.
Now, have you ever told yourself, there's something wrong, or I don't belong, or I'm on my own at any point in your life?
Yeah, all three.
So let's start with the first one. There's something wrong.
Yeah.
What happened that you said that?
And maybe, I don't know if, let's say there's something wrong. I knew that there wasn't like, there was something missing. There was something like, just, I didn't feel like, I always felt not going to school or the guys I married and everything, that there was something missing. There was something that just, I didn't live my life where I thought like I look at people or something like that and I'm like, why didn't I go down this path of really being this structured and using my intelligence to do things? So for the longest, it was there's something wrong. There's something wrong that I didn't finish school. There's something wrong of the jobs that I've lost, and there's something wrong with the men that I've been with and all that. So that was something that was really prevalent for such a long time, until I started really working on myself to say, no, it's okay. You know, we all kind of take our path. And so for me, my path was this path, and I'm grateful now for it. Because if I chose to, I could go back to school or whatever else. I'm finally seeing that now, you know.
Now, I don't belong.
It's like I said, in my family. I literally doorstep, like I'm waiting one day to go in a closet and find the basket that they found me in or whatever like that. And so I felt for the longest time I didn't belong. I felt like there was something, you know, I want to be in service. I want to give back. I want to travel. I want to do all these things. And my family was always like, you're so weird. My brother told me about last year, he's like, you're really different than us. And I'm like, finally, someone agrees with me. So I did. For the longest time, I felt like I didn't belong. Yeah.
So I think you can answer the question, but I want to ask it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the moment that you realized or you felt, I don't belong, what did you start doing so that you could feel to belong?
What did I do to feel to belong? I don't know if I did anything like that. It's really an interesting kind of question because I could tell you I still played it safe and I still was the yes girl and I still kept it like really simple. I think just try to being in drama or the flash, whatever I was doing. So I was the good girl. So I think if anything, I was just the yes. I was like, okay. And it's really wild now because I think about myself now and I'm just like, I feel like I'm reversed in age because all of a sudden I waited until 40 to be like free, you know? And yeah.
We kind of brings to the next question is that because you didn't belong, you started being, the yes girl.
Yeah.
When in reality, what did you want to do?
Oh, hell no. I want to be able to say yes to the things that I want and no to the things. And then, ready for this? Be okay with me. Be okay with the craziness of me. Be okay with the traveling girl of me. Be okay with the one who is wild and the one who will be first to jump up on the dance floor. That's probably if I was, and imagine at that age of 16, 17, 18 to be that yes and that confident, it took me another, 24 years to realize that that's me. And to really realize it without pretending, to say that that's truly who I am.
Yeah. And now the last one is, I'm on my own. When? What happened?
I would say the last year, for the first time, when I moved in 2017, I moved into my own place. That was the first time I've ever lived on my own, right?
So that on my own that we're talking about is like nobody's gonna help me.
Oh, please! It's so weird. So I'm on my own. This is a weird question because I think if I was to say I'm on my own, because I said yes, but I don't ever remember feeling on my own. I remember having these lonely moments. I always knew my family was around. And because I guess my family in Tennessee, I was really close with them. So I think maybe at 18 when I decided to leave the house and I went to stay at my friend's house around the corner. And that was probably the first time I was like, I'm on my own. But I have to say, and this is, I didn't even realize this, I don't think I've ever been on my own. Like where then I'm on my own and I'm alone and there's no one here. Because there was always someone. And it took me a long time to realize that even though my family might not have been, the Hughes family from As the World Turns, I still had the family. So yeah, and I just thought about that. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Now the last question is, we're all gonna die eventually. What's being said about Barbara in the eulogy?
She lived. She lived her life. She loved. She was the person you would call at 2:00 in the morning, and she cared so much for others. And she was a great mom and a great aunt, and she enjoyed the moments of life.
In spite of?
No. And see, that's the thing. It's not in spite of.
Or through, or what did she overcome to be able to be what you just said?
I think she overcame her own doubts and fears. So if anything, she overcame what I think her family, everyone, I've always been loved. I've always been, looked at that way. I think I overcame my fears and doubts to see my greatness and to enjoy. I love the word moments, and moments are really special to me. So it's the little moments and the big moments. But I overcame the doubts and fears and the shame to live this extraordinary life.
So, one last message.
I would say the biggest message that I can share with you today is to know that whatever you're going through and that whatever might be happening in your life, sometimes we go through it and we wonder what is the purpose of it. It's a journey. So enjoy the journey, enjoy the ups and the downs, and know that you are incredible and you're a gift to this world. Thank you.